Detective, was the determination of ownership from the laptop based on the computer position being in the driver's side passenger seat?
That was one piece of information that we took into consideration, but the computer belonged to the defendant. When the computer was opened up and powered on, it was signed in with the defendant's picture on the screensaver.
During the video, the defendant provided an address, yet he responded on the street to where he was living. Do you know whose address he provided?
The address was his mother's address. It was for obtaining mail from.
As case agent, are you familiar with all evidence in the case, both physical evidence and statements made?
The overall case agent, it is my responsibility to be familiar with the entire investigation. However, because of how long ago the investigation was, I don't know, and I did not commit to memory for purposes of my testimony yesterday, or Monday and today, to be able to speak to all of the evidence. Other investigators and other laboratory personnel would be better suited to answer some of the questions surrounding the evidence.
Was there any video recovered from the Knights Inn?
Yes, there was.
If so, did it show anything or part of the incident, such as the vehicle passing under the awning?
It did show certain portions of the incident, but as far as identifying information, I don't recall the specifics. Again, I didn't review the video for preparation for today's testimony.
Were there any bullets recovered at the scene or in the car involved that had not been fired by the officers involved?
There were casings at the scene from the officers who returned fire, and there were fragments and projectiles inside the Mercury Sable when it was examined by the detectives conducting the examination on the vehicle.
I'm going to re-ask the question because I'm not sure that answers it. Were there any bullets recovered at the scene or in the car involved that had not been fired by the officers involved?
No, there were no live rounds at the scene from the officers.
I'm going to ask it one more time.
Okay.
And maybe I will rephrase.
Okay.
You have indicated that there were bullets fired by the officers found at the scene. Were
Correct.
there any bullets found at the scene that were not fired by the officers, whether it was a bullet or a shell casing?
I'm trying to recall. I can't recall specifically.
Had Officer Casey's firearm been discharged?
No, it had not. It never was removed from the holster.
On the car's second pass, were shots fired at the car while exiting the parking lot and also as it drove south on the frontage road, or only one or the other?
It was our determination while doing the walkthrough with the officers that they had returned fire as the vehicle was proceeding east on the north side of the Knights Inn, as well as southbound on the access road.
When did Bueno talk to his mom? Before he came back from the hospital or after?
I don't know that he ever made the phone call to his mother.
To your knowledge, was the handwriting sample the defendant provided conclusively proven to be the same person who wrote the name on the officer's notepad?
I don't know if it was conclusively linked according to the analysis by the DPS, the DPS civilian, Alan Kreidel.
If you know the timestamp on the images from the casino was wrong, how do you know the date stamp was correct?
Another witness will testify with information pertaining to that answer.
Was there GSR, which I understand to be gunshot residue testing, done on the inside of the left rear door or the back of the seat of the driver's seat to determine if a gun had been fired inside the vehicle?
I'm not sure. I don't believe that test was conducted when the vehicle was examined.
Was the blood of Danny Vargas or Valeria Jaime found in the back seat of the Sable?
Again, I'm not sure what the results were of that processing.
Was the road outside of the hotel one-way or two-way?
The road was the southbound access road, so it would be a one-way southbound.
Thank you. Ms. Dahl?
Thank you, Judge. Now, GSR. What is GSR?
Gunshot residue.
What does a GSR test show?
It will show the presence of gunshot residue particles on clothing, or that a gun had been fired in the area.
Now, will GSR, if a gun is being shot from a vehicle, will that show where the gun was when it was discharged?
No, it will not.
Will it only show the general vicinity that a firearm was shot from?
Correct.
In this case, would GSR show who a shooter was within a vehicle?
No, it would not.
And in fact, were the conditions that the vehicle was found in the next day, or I guess I should say later that day on the shooting, were those not helpful?
Correct. They would not be conditions conducive for doing that test.
Well, what were the conditions that would not be conducive for the GSR test?
It had been raining. The window, the back glass was not intact, so air would be able to circulate.
And so does the powder dissipate?
Yes, it does.
So would that have helped in the investigation in any manner?
No.
Did you already know that shots had been fired from the vehicle based upon the physical condition of the vehicle?
Correct.
Specifically, item P on the roof?
Yes.
Now, Ramon Bueno, did he have any gunshot injuries to his body?
No, he did not.
Danny Vargas, Danny Vargas, he had a gunshot wound to the lower back left of his back, correct?
Correct.
Is that where the bullet hole was in the Mercury Sable?
Yes, it was.
If Ramon Bueno had been sitting in the rear passenger side, would you have expected would you have expected him to be the one shot in the back?
Absolutely.
The fact that there was no blood in the vehicle, does that mean that Danny Vargas didn't bleed in the vehicle?
No, it does not.
Does it mean that Valeria Jaime did not bleed in the vehicle?
No.
The fact that there were no other identifications or phones left in the vehicle, was that suspicious?
No.
Was it suspicious that there was no evidence left that was identified? Let me ask it a different way.
No, I would expect that they would take their property or move with their belongings. But the fact that the laptop was there was suspicious because that would indicate he left in a hurry.
But is it possible that Valeria, who is pretty slick, or street smart is a better word, she could have picked up the spent cartridge casings?
Yes, absolutely.
And in fact, item 29, the item found the spent cartridge casing that was in the rear passenger door, that was fairly difficult to find, right?
Yes, it was.
Did the defendant, if you remember, refuse to give the telephone number of his mom to Detective Lopez?
I don't remember if he did or not.
Was Alan Kreidel the document examiner that tried to come to a conclusion regarding the person who wrote Johnny Ruiz on the notepad of Officer Casey?
Yes.
If he had testified that it was inconclusive earlier in this trial, would that mean it was not an identification or an exclusion?
Correct.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Lorenz, any follow-up?
Thank you, Your Honor.
And let me ask, do you have an approximate amount of time?
I have 2 questions, I believe. I certainly won't go past 4:30.
All right, and what I'm going to tell you all is I like to stop on time, but if we could give everyone the grace of just a few minutes if we go over, that way we could release this witness if needed. Mr. Lorenz, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, Detective Butcher.
So the handwriting's inconclusive, correct? In response to the juror's question.
Yes.
There was another question. Did you, and I say you, I mean the collective you, recover any bullets, fired bullets, that did not come from the troopers' guns at the Knight's Inn?
I don't believe so, no.
I'm sorry.
I don't believe so, no.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Dahl?
Were there bullet fragments coming from the face of Officer Casey for months after this shooting?
Yes.
Nothing further.
I see no additional questions from jurors. Is that correct? All right, there are no additional questions from jurors. That does conclude your testimony. You are excused. Thank you very much for being here. All right. With that, everyone, we are breaking for the evening. We will be back tomorrow at our regular time of 10:30. Remember, the admonition applies, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.
All right, jury.
Okay. Ms. Dahl, I'm chance to pop open my notes here. So my understanding is that next we have next.
Judge, we've done quite a bit of shuffling, and I'm also dealing with personal schedules. I've been talking to Mr. Lorenz. I can tell you right now, I have 2 witnesses in the hallway. Kendra Griffey, who is the person who impounded the surveillance video at the Cold Air Cafe. Jacob Rasmussen, who impounded the 4 unspent cartridge casings at the railroad along with the white T-shirt. Tomorrow I had Mike Bedow, the firearms expert from PPD, ready to go, along with the DNA analyst.
You had or have?
I have. Everything is in place, but now I just have to figure out who comes on first and so on. But I will tell you, it will be a full day tomorrow. It will be a full day Thursday. Officer Casey may end up going on the stand on Monday. But every night or early morning, I'm trying to make sure that Mr. Lorenz also knows exactly what's happening. We're not trying to surprise him.
Okay.
They've kept me posted at every step, which is much appreciated.
And I appreciate it as well. So it does sound like we'll have approximately 3 witnesses tomorrow, correct?
Oh, no, we'll have more.
Okay.
We will have more. I just have to figure out who that'll be. And I do have the esteemed Ms. Cushing here, who kind of keeps trains running on time. She'll make sure that, I can even update the court in the morning if you need it, but I can tell you we'll have a full day tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. And then the court will provide you with copies of the final jury instructions tomorrow as well. I'll give you a chance to look those over for a day, and then we can get those resolved, hopefully by the end of the day on Thursday. Of course, the open question will be if the defendant is or is not testifying. When I prepare my final jury instructions, I always leave in both options, and then once we know the answer, we can print the final version.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we can address before we adjourn?
No, thank you, Judge.
Oh, Your Honor, thank you.
Right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.